What is up, everybody? Welcome to. Hey, this is a ministry from. We're going to get going. We got a lot of stuff that we're going to be ripping through tonight. But before we jump into all of that, you can notice some things have changed around here a little bit. I can imagine that homes have shifted around a little bit, and our home is no different. My wife, Mackenzie, is a school teacher, and she definitely needed a different space to be reading her students and prep in her classroom. Now that she's completely on a distance learning, e-learning plan with all of your students. So what did that call for? We needed another desk. We couldn't quite swing it with our dining room table. And frankly, the only other tables that we have around here are little nightstand tables. So we've been on a budget in some ways and found a free desk from her parents. So we spent some time situating a little setup for her. And what that means is that my desk got shifted around a little bit. So I'm coming at you from the awesome comfort of our rocking chair this evening. So I'm going to be kicking it back, relaxing quite a bit, and enjoying our time here. And would love for you guys to do the same. Make sure you're comfy because we got a lot of stuff that we're going to be ripping through. And your ears are going to be hard at work. We're super excited for all that we have in store. But before we get going, we got a couple of items that we have to iron out, like I was saying before. First of all, you know when you clean, sometimes you have no idea where stuff ends up. Well, you see, that happened. And I just found out that happened. And what that happened with is my sweet little note cards that were the graphics of our show. So you notice I didn't have Late Nights with Jake Smith popped up in front of your face as soon as you got on. That's because, as cleaning goes, I load them up and I have no idea where they ended up. I'm super sorry that I don't have my graphics, but hopefully some of you remember what our different show segments look like. So anyways, we won't have our graphics. We don't have quite the technical savvy anyways to get them all going, but that's okay. Love to see all you guys chiming in, seeing where you're coming in from. Thanks again for joining us. And also those that are viewing after the fact. We've had a lot of folks that'll chime in and check out our vids, hear from our awesome guest speakers after the fact, so they don't watch it live. That's super cool too. If you hear something tonight that you think someone else should hear about, go ahead and send them a link. We'd love for us to just be vessels that the Lord can speak to different people to. In addition, we have some snippets that we've been pulling. So our speakers have dropped some nuggets of gold, not quite golden tablets. We're not going down that route, but some really good gold nuggets for us to chew on and for us to look back on. So we put some little snippets onto the YouTube channel. In addition, we posted some other links for our Men of Hope email, as well as the Men of Hope Facebook page. And would love to encourage you guys check out those links as a further discussion, more than just being here live and here now. So just some things to iron out there. I'm so sorry, Peter, about the graphics. I really am bummed. I see your comment here, and I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I'll put my artistry to the test. We'll see if I can get back to it. But imagine the graphics are sliding in right now, and we're going to go right into our very first segment, and that is What's in the Cup, Jake? This is a fun little play on words that I told the story initially. This is my Yeti here. I told the story initially that I was with some friends at a hotel at a Christian conference crew, and this janitor I ran into, and he's kind of looking at me like, whoa, and I'm so thrilled, and I was just so energized by our huge worship session that we had. I just look at him, I'm like, hey, how's it going? Just like over the top, enthusiastic and dramatic. And he goes, good. What's in the cup, Jake? And I think he's probably seen a number of hotel guests that are a little too intoxicated. And I might have, felt intoxicated to him with the excitement and exuberance and things like that. I was drunk on the spirit a little bit, so I guess he's not wrong. But anyways, from there, all my friends would continue asking me, hey, what's in the cup, Jake, at random times. So that's just a little background here. I see some guesses already coming through. As you should remember, which is kind of embarrassing because I didn't, my wife and I are doing 30 days of healthy living. Well, we're trying to live healthier for 30 days. Maybe that's a better way to put it, because as far as what the diet is for 30 days of healthy living, we haven't exactly been the best with that. But what that usually includes is beer and wine. And I've said no to beer for a little chunk of time. So unfortunately, I won't be sharing my favorite beer with all of you guys for a little bit longer. So we'll have to wait and see some of my favorite IPAs. We'll maybe break those out a little bit later. But what I do have here in my Yeti is a little cinnamon tea. Now, I've been on a tea craze. I told you guys a little bit about me. That I started a tea company, but why cinnamon tea? What does cinnamon tea have to say about me? Well, I had a friend growing up, and she had this condition, more like this superpower, I guess, that every time she met somebody, she would remember that person with a taste. So every time she met somebody new, a new taste would be logged in her memory. And you, smart scientists than me, can explain exactly what goes on there. She basically remembered people by like the taste that they'd remember. So of course you hear this, and we're like, whoa, well, what does my name remind you of? Or when you see me, what is that? Turns out that I reminded her of cinnamon rolls. And I remember that like so vividly and so clearly. And it was one of those cool things because I might have been like 11, maybe 10 at the time. It's one of those memories that like you could describe picture perfectly. And I don't know why that is, that some things are just so clear and quite frankly kind of random. But I just remember that so clearly. So every time that I have cinnamon or I smell cinnamon, I immediately think of her. I immediately think of that superpower that she has. And then I go from there. What if I had it? What would I, associate taste with? Well, who would be venison in my life? Maybe that's my dad. I don't know. I just kind of get down this weird little spin of just like, wow, that would be crazy. But I can't tell if I would want that or not. But anyways, this is a little toast to those that have this superpower. I'll see if I can put it in the comments. I don't remember exactly what it's called. But those that like can remember people with taste, that's fascinating. That's so cool. I have no idea. Taste alone is, I mean, such a gift from the Lord. We just needed energy. We didn't have to taste it. That's so great. So cheers to that. If you have any sort of weird, attachments with different scents that bring up memories or things like that, hold tightly to them. They're kind of weird. I get that. But in all reality, they're kind of special. I can remember it just like yesterday. It's super cool. So that's what I'll be sipping tonight. Feel free if you have any beverages that you're sipping that you think others should try. Go ahead and toss them in. We'd love to get some new flavors potentially in our lockdown here. So that's what's in the cup this week. Moving and talk about some things that can generally split the aisle. And this isn't a political split. This is more what men tend to think and what women tend to think. Because in my life, my wife, Mackenzie, and I, we've learned a lot about things that men tend to think and women tend to think, and different trivial things. To mine, we really have weird arguments over different things. So for married men, you might know exactly what we're talking about. And those of you that are single, consider this all fair warning. These are your warnings. And that's completely okay, because as much as I know my wife, as much as I've gotten to pursue her and get to know her character and what she likes and doesn't like, things still surprise us. And people grow and people change. And so staying on pace with those are always fun to uncover and try and think, man, what is, how in the world do you appreciate it that way? That's really cool. And that's something I want to challenge this to be, is not, hey, go take this and, shake your fist that you're right or wrong, but go back and say, wow, this is cool that you can experience something differently than me. So the thing that we're going to talk about this week, this came up when my wife and I were just making the bed. We make the bed in the morning for the most part. We're not a military house, so we don't do it every morning. But we're making the bed, and I had told my wife a preference that I have in making the bed. And it came to me as I was lying down in bed because she had remembered that preference and made the bed specifically on my corner for my preference. And then her corner was her preference. And this preference that we had was, do you tuck in the end of your what would that be? Your bed sheet. So do you tuck your bed sheet in really, really tightly, or do you like it loose? Because my preference, for some reason, I don't like sticking my toes into like crevices or tight space. So I actually, every time I go to sleep, I'll yank the bed sheet loose so that my feet don't have, this pocket that they're sandwiched between the bed and the bed sheet. But my wife's the opposite. She loves the opposite. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Is this like of course it's a trivial thing, but do either of you feel strongly on either side? Because I tell you what, I don't remember the last time that I slept with that bed sheet super, super tight. Because every night I'll take it undone a little bit, so I have a little bit of room. It's super weird. I don't know why I'm that way. But on the bright side, I'm not sure why my wife's that way. We've just seen that as cool things that instead of rolling our eyes and throwing elbows for trivial purposes, they're cool ways. She can love the entire world that likes the bed sheet tight. She can. We got a couple good ones in the pipeline for down the aisle, but that's this week's. And I'm sorry if I just brought this up and you've never thought about it before and you won't be able to fall asleep because of it. Sincerely, my apologies. Now, moving on to our next section, we're going to do our pastor trivia. Now, I have finite sources. Our God is infinite, but I have finite sources. And because of that, I actually realized, you know what? I had a couple cool gifts that I could rip off and send out to some cool winners. I can't quite do that every week. So this week is just going to be for some pride. See if we can get our trivia question correct with some pride. So no official article it'll be sent out or huge prize. To be honest, they weren't really that cool prizes anyways. But what we're going to do is I'm going to share a question, true or false, about one of the pastors on our Hope team. And you simply just have to say true or false. I'm super curious to see who's right and who's wrong. We have, in general, batted below 500. Now, in baseball, that's amazing. That's really, really good. But statistically, so far, we, as a community watching this, we batted below 500 in getting these things right, which is either really, really good research on my end to get great questions, or we don't really know our pastors and they need to open up more. One or the other. I'm not quite sure. So I'll let you be the judge of that, or C, none of the above. But here we go. True or false? Super straightforward. This week's feature is with our pastor, John Neal. And the question about John Neal, true or false? John Neal grew up in the 5th smallest town in Minnesota. And when growing up in the 5th smallest town of Minnesota, his house that he grew up in had 5-sided fence. He had a pentagon-sized fence around his house. True or false? We'll see. We'll see what the answer brings. Would love to see your answers there. True or false? John Neal grew up in the 5th smallest town, and the house that he grew up in had a pentagon-shaped fence. True or false? Let's see it. And they are cohesive. They are in one, either entirely true or entirely false. Go ahead and give your answers. Well, hey, we're super excited for a couple of guests that we have on tonight. This is something new. Yes, we have 2 people to get through some awesome content with. So I'm super excited. We have Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, some of you might know. Ben currently works at Hope Academy. And actually one of his colleagues that is at Hope Academy is joining us tonight. And that's Nathan Ziegler. So Nathan and Ben they're going to join us here. We're going to get to know both of them a little bit more, get to know them corporately a little bit more and what their work and what their ministry looks like. But really the goal that we're going to be capturing is how has our past month looked? And this is a question that both Ben and Nathan are going to be answering. And I would love to challenge each of you. How has your past month looked? Make sure to spend some time in reflection about what the past month has looked like. A lot has changed. My desk setup has changed. That drives some people crazy. It doesn't drive me crazy, thankfully. But it's really important to look back and see, that's something to do in prudence. That's something to do in hope, and definitely something to do here on late night. So we're going to hear from both Nathan and Ben. Let's give them a little welcome here. I'm going to make sure that my technical aspects are all set up for them. I believe we're all set. Let's start off. I'd love to introduce both of these men individually, so we don't talk over each other too much. So we'll go alphabetical as far as, well, I guess first and last would count here. Hey, Ben Johnson, say hello and give a warm welcome.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Everyone's, I'm sure, talking to their screens at home. Enthusiastic to have you here, Ben. And then Nathan Ziegler.
Hey there, guys.
Awesome. So you can tell their voices are really similar. So I'll try and make sure that we, can articulate who's talking. But both of these dapper voices will be joining us here. And we'll start out. I'd love just a little bit of background. I mean, we got to know a little bit. Maybe it was true, maybe it was false. Some background from John Neal. But would love, could you guys just spend a minute each, just giving a little background on where you're from, where you grew up, and kind of land the plane when you got connected with Hope Community. We'll switch it up and we'll actually start with Nathan. So Nathan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I grew up in Montevideo, Minnesota. It's west of the city, is about 2.5 hours. And went to the University of Minnesota to study civil engineering. Hope Community Church opened its doors October '96. I actually went December of '96 my first time before I was a believer, and then started going regularly that spring, and then became a believer that next year, my sophomore year, and then I've just stayed ever since. So been going to Hope for a very long time.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I was born in 1996. That's a long time.
Yeah. You can
I'm just
figure
teasing.
out how many years I've been going there then.
Yeah, no, this is great. I know how wise you are in years, which is amazing. No, that's awesome. All right, Ben, how about you?
It's good that Nathan went first, because I actually partly went to Hope because I met him in the dorms in '97. And my first Sunday at Hope was we had a service in the Stadium Village Church parking lot, and there was about 35 people in the lot. I forgot the growing up part. I grew up in a town about the size of what you're talking about with John Neal. It's not the fifth smallest, but maybe in the top 50 smallest. And came to the U of M, studied civil engineering like Nathan, switched to teaching like Nathan. So I pretty much have just followed whatever Ziegler has done over the years in my own life.
Yeah, definitely. Really cool how, I mean, I actually know about both of those different towns. Ben, you've actually gotten to share about that with me before. And really cool. I for some reason, have a fascination out in the country. But we're super thankful to have you here in the city. And life in the city has definitely looked, I'm sure, different in a number of different avenues. And we're gonna jump into that because that's super important for our church being located right in the middle of downtown. And in a sense, as is our middle name, we really want to care about our community. And speaking of something that's located not too far away is Hope Academy, where both of you guys are at. Now, could you just describe a little bit what your current role looks like at Hope Academy? And we'll transition that if you could both answer what that role looks like and what that role looks like today. Obviously, a lot's changed in the past month. So bring us through just a couple of things from your work life that have changed in the past month. And Nathan, we'll start out with you.
Sure. Yeah, I am the upper school principal, so I work with the students and staff of the 6th grade through 12th grade. And this is year number 11 of doing that. So I taught before becoming a principal. And yeah, it looks a lot different now because I'm doing it from home. And so a lot of it's been just trying to figure out how to organize a school, going from just a traditional school setting to distance learning. And so it's shifted a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine it doesn't quite work to get sent to Mr. Ziegler's office when you're in trouble much. That was, for the most part, my interaction with our principals growing up.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, you're the leadership of the school, right? You're the captain of the ship, and I'm sure in a lot of ways you're the safety voice of the school, which is a very important role. And I'm sure some of the things that come with that also bring great difficulty from a distance. And I'm excited to dive in a little bit of what that transition looks like. But yeah, we'll shift it over to Ben. Ben, you want to bring us up to speed on your role?
Yeah, my role is with the high school. So I work with the 9th through 12th graders. I teach 10th through 12th math. Part of my 11th and 12th graders do PSEO through University of Northwestern. No offense, Jake, you're a St. Thomas guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that'll wrap up our call here for Ben.
Yeah, sorry. So I do some work for Northwestern adjunct as well, but I also oversee the high school team of teachers, and I've been at Hope for 12 years.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so both of you guys have some crossover for the age of students that you're interacting with in a lot of ways. And those are definitely important stages of life. We all experience a lot of changes all around us during those stages of life. I want to speak to the perspective of students. I'd love you to share your heart a little bit on some of the things that you're praying for your students. And I kind of want to access these because I do think that there are lots of bricks that are put into our character from that age. So I'd love to hear from your perspective, some of the students you're working with. And Men, I want us to hear from a perspective, what are things that, we were challenged with, or different bricks in our character that we had from back in early formation days, latter middle school into high school, even into college. Because I do think we have lots of tendencies to, to call back to the student body.
Are you talking about just in general or specifically now in the situation that we're in?
Yeah, thinking specifically the situation we're in.
Yeah. Well, we had 2 weeks. So we were just on spring break this last week, and so we had 2 weeks where we were doing distance learning already, and so it's still fairly new for students. So I'm guessing that at some point it's really gonna set in that they're not going to be seeing their friends for a while, and so just some of those feelings of loneliness and isolation that they're going to be dealing with is one of the things that I'm going to be praying for a lot.
Yeah, I can jump off of that. I think I just think like a lot of high schoolers are just going through kind of times of loss of different specific events that are kind of milestones. At our school we do something a little different called formal, where we don't bring outside guests, but it's our kind of prom, so that's probably not going to happen. We have an kind of a spoken word event called Creative Expressions. That's not happening. Graduation is a question mark for our seniors. We had 2 mission trips, one to Puerto Rico for the 12th grade. In the same way, all of us have been thinking about different things that we're sacrificing. Mostly for myself, it's been on the topics of comfort and ease and things that I just like or preferences in my life. But for high schooler, those are pretty all-encompassing kind of things that matter a lot to them. So I think I've just been praying they stay encouraged. Some of them are in difficult home situations where I think a lot of us quarantining with our family is not what we would choose, but it's not real hard. But for some of our students, it is really hard. And so I think just praying that God would meet them in those challenges.
Yeah, no, I mean, spot on. Some of the things that we've been talking about the past couple weeks with our late night here are very similar to those things. I mean, you said it spot on there, Nathan, to start. Loneliness and isolation, one of the first things that we chatted about. I think it is super important to be communal in this way, right? Trying to be engaged with our community. I think you guys bring a really cool perspective there. I don't obviously speak much to middle school aged or high school aged individuals. Even though you think I'm just out of high school, I'm actually 24. So I'm way older than them. But seriously, like getting engaged with the community that we're in is super important to just be in tune to those emotions. Now to kind of roll with that, I understand both of you, your home settings are obviously work settings now, and work settings are challenging now because, right, being into the home. But what are some things that you guys are practicing yourself to try and figure out what that balance looks like? Try and figure out what does the line look like between work and being at home, even when they're in the same physical location.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different because we were just on spring break, and I really tried to take some time off from doing school-related stuff, and was pretty successful at that. So next week will be another time of trying to figure out what that was. So the first 2 weeks, one of the things that I learned is that I didn't schedule a lunch, and so a lot of the day was filled up. I think between 2 of the days of the week, it was 15 hours of Microsoft Teams meetings and just nonstop. And so then you realize, okay, I'm not going to eat while I'm on a Teams meeting and have everybody listening to me eat. And so one of the things that I just did for next week and the weeks after is just schedule lunch with the family. And so I think that's the kids have a half hour at the same time where they're going to be able to have lunch off from their school stuff, and so I sent out a calendar and invite to my wife so that she can have the same lunch break, and so that's been something important. We made it a real try to be intentional about sitting down at the dinner table and having dinner each night, and so just trying to be intentional about making some of those routines while it's early on still.
Yeah, I think for me, Jake, I'm just assuming you want me to answer too.
Yeah, definitely.
I have had a little different than Nathan in that I teach also, so I interact with the kids. It's actually been like a highlight when I've had that chance, like just the back and forth, whether it's on a chat or on a video call or whatever, doing teaching makes it feel a little bit like we're connecting in person. So that's been pretty cool. As far as family though, I think, just trying to set aside, same thing as Nathan, just intentional time. The kids all have different needs, and I think those become heightened when you're around each other, or you see their individual needs more coherently expressed, I guess, when they're all together and we're together all the time. So see the need for like, my boys just need to go run around. So I've shot more hoops in the driveway in the last 2 weeks here than I have probably in the last 3 years. So my jump shot is not improving very much, unfortunately, and my son Phil can beat me in most shot kind of games now, which is also a down day as a dad. Lord of the Rings as a family, so that's been kind of fun too. Yeah, man,
there's a good one. I'm always a fan of any Lord of the Rings shout out. But super important there. I mean, so many new habits are being picked up. I started running, which not a runner. I started running because I need some outlet for some energy. But I think a really important draw from what you guys were both saying is intentionality. It's kind of hard to just expect it. You can't just expect your car ride home now to connect with your roommates or to connect with your family that's at home. So that is super important to be intentional, and something that you can really lose sight of. And I think something that I definitely feel blessed with is having my wife that, is here to connect with me. And I know that some of us men have special people in our lives. We have wives. Some of us have roommates. But I know that some of us are single men as well. I'd love to hear about what are some encouragements that you guys might have for some of the men who are listening that are single, whether they have roommates or not, and dealing with some of the loneliness and isolation. I can imagine there might be some parallels in how you've ministered and cared for the men that are going to Hope Academy.
Yeah, I can start that one, Zig. Yeah, I just have been trying to think through kind of who is in my circle, I guess, is kind of the way I think about it. That is someone that may not be connecting as much. My wife Brooke's doing the same with her circle. I mean, we had a friend we called the other night, and we were just having a bonfire on the deck, and she joined us for our bonfire, which is kind of cool for her because normally she's kind of indoorsy, so doesn't love bonfire, but she joined us virtually for that, and that was kind of fun. I think also the other thing is just who can you guys think of that may have some unmet needs right now? Obviously, that's a big topic, and stimulus checks sound nice and stuff, but I think like just practically, who might be needing something? If you're making a trip to the store, is there someone you can offer to try to grab something for if you can find anything right now? But just doing some of those practical kind of things. I think checking in, text or just a call or whatever is a good way to try to encourage people.
Yeah. Just to real quick before you go there, Nathan, my grandma used to say something very similar all the time, and bless her heart. But really, as much as I laughed at, cute old grandma, bless her heart, like I was saying, there's a lot of truth there. I think that there's some truth to, be following up on how people come to mind and being intentional, who might need a friend now more than ever, or just to check in more than ever, is super important. I wanted to add that in there because, that's something that definitely resonates with me personally, and is a good challenge to be reminded of. Nathan, you wanted to add something in there?
Yeah, it wasn't much. Just same word came to mind. Just being intentional, with the guys who you do have in your life. That maybe that even means trying to schedule a weekly check-in. Just asking, how is it going? How can I be praying for you? How can you be praying for me? And just it's going to be even more important now than ever, just to try to schedule some regular check-ins with other guys.
Yeah, definitely. We've definitely, walked this line of, looking back to our past month or so and seeing some of the, some of the changes and stresses that come with that, and have given some outlook looking ahead. But, I do want to sit here with hope that, we'll be out of this odd circumstance, this odd situation in the near future. But pending whatever timeline we're on for that, given social distancing and staying in lockdown, what are some ways that come to mind when you think about the men of hope, the men that are resembling our community and that are around our community? What are some things that you would really love to encourage in personal development during this time? Are there any things that come to mind for using time, not just to be pouring ourselves out and serving others, but to be considering ourselves from maybe a mental health standpoint, or a reflective standpoint, and definitely a position in faith. Any of you guys?
I'm really routine oriented, and so during the school year, I get up at a certain time, and so I've noticed that I need to do the same during this time, even more because work is the same location as home now, and so trying to establish a routine of when I'm getting up, and during the school year, regular part of the school year, my routine is getting into the Word, spending some time with God before I check, which has been really, really important to spend that time with God before things get started, because if I don't, then the day gets going and I don't take the time to do that. And so that's something that I've found to be very important in my routine, that I'm going to try to make a priority to continue that.
Yeah, I would say some of the same things. Nathan, you are a master of routine, so not all of us are necessarily that disciplined as you are. But yeah, well, you just function really well in that. I do for the most part too, but not everybody's that way. But I would say like some of the principles of like what's healthy or what's beneficial are good to think through. So I had similar things like I was finding that if I looked at news or anything kind of starting my day, it's obviously really discouraging, right? So, or anxiety inducing, I guess. And so I was reading a little bit of a passage from C.S. Lewis and Mere Christianity. He was just talking about in general how when we wake up, the first thing that wants to crowd in is the worries of life, and those want to crowd in and fill us for whatever comes in a given day. And so just truths like that have been, I think, they've landed more fully with me the last few weeks. And so it's been pretty helpful to think through things like that. As far as other things, I don't know. I like to try different stuff. So I've been doing some extra cooking. I like to cook. I smoked a turkey on my grill a couple weeks ago. My kids made sushi last night and I helped them. So that was pretty awesome. So just doing some kind of creative stuff to try to keep learning, keep trying different stuff. So.
Yeah, that's super exciting. I felt reflective there. Just, what are some of the things that I picked up, maybe without even noticing. Yeah, really cool to, see just different things. But really what comes to mind there is there has to be some focus, we are creatures of habit, but when the world kind of shakes a little bit to disrupt some of those habits that we've made, you need a little bit of focus to maintain them. And quite frankly, some trust, in those habits or routine and the benefits they have. Yeah, those are super good feedbacks. I'd love to hear from our audience in the comments, just sharing some of the things that you've been, awakening or continuing intentionally during this time, as far as personal development, or, ways that you're caring for yourself and making sure that you're connecting with God and connecting with other people. Because I think the things that you guys were saying are very transferable in relationships, not just for families. But we as men can be connecting with, those in our small group and be intentional to follow up with the men that are close in our lives and maybe even the men that aren't as close, which loops back in, right, thinking of those in our lives that we can reach out to now. So I want to, I'll shut up here. You guys are saying so many good things. I'm trying to take, verbal notes here. So I'd love to close on a couple different questions. And I want to start out with you, Nathan. So Nathan, one of your, clear roles is being that face of leadership within Hope Academy, at least with the upper school. And I would love to ask, what does that look like now, given the circumstance of everything? What sort of importance have you felt that calling to look like? And could you transfer on some of the principles that God's been showing you and leading you and building you up in? Transfer those over to us as a community, where we can be leaders in different ways.
Yeah, sure. So again, I think it goes back to a daily time with God, that our walks with Him it's not just something that is built up overnight. It's something that happens over time when you learn to trust God, and see Him work over years of time. That you are able to look back and say, okay, even if I don't know what to do or don't know what this is going to look like, I can see all these different points in my life that God has answered when I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. And so I think he prepares each of us for that type of situation by building us up that way. I guess, specifically in those moments when we were first starting to realize that school getting called off was going to be a real possibility. I got really good at making quick decisions. And so that's something that I'm not usually good at, because I like to consult a bunch of different people, really try to figure out what the best solution is, and then decide kind of slowly. And so it was a lot of different things where we had to quick put a team together. We called it a logistics team, and so we quickly called a team together, and then each time we met, I had a list of things that we needed to try to get through and solve. And so a lot of times we'd say, okay, we don't need to talk about that anymore. So and so, you take that, and you figure that out and run with that. And so you take that and figure that out. And so it was a lot of days where we would make a bunch of decisions and then spend the rest of the day communicating those decisions to parents and to teachers. And so it was kind of a daily make a bunch of decisions and then spend the next half of the day communicating out those decisions, and then, repeating that each day. And so being able to make some quick decisions was something that was really important during that time.
Yeah, man, some good stuff there. And I think there's a lot of us that might not face a similar circumstance of, I have to make a decision now for hundreds of people, the families that are at home, and there are so many different moving parts involved there. But I mean, drawing out consistency and just having an ability to surrender that and say, all right, I'm not sure what this will look like, but having a foundation built of a solid foundation in Christ, from consistency and just a routine and a habit to lean into them. I'm sure that's not necessarily an easier thing, but it does give I do believe this, that it does give it gives way to the Spirit to be moving behind the scenes, in ways that we don't see, which is really really important. So thanks for sharing about what your roles looked like, Nathan, and thanks for doing what you're doing as well, and being able to make those decisions on behalf of many. And I mean, thinking of many people, Ben, you're teaching many kids, and that teachings looked very different. And really, Ben, I know that I've gotten to get to know you a little bit through some of our Men of Hope events and learning through you corporately in our community. But a consistent thing I've heard about you is your servant heart. And I'd love to tap into that and get you to talk about how well you are at that for a moment. Sorry if that is uncomfortable to you, but I'd love to access, you get a chance to teach and to, live life alongside some amazing kids that are, your students that you're teaching. Some of us might not have as easy of a route and as easy of a direction to be serving. So I'd love to access some of the heart posture and servantness. Could you speak a little bit to some of the things that you think are important, that we as Christian men can be serving those nearby, serving our community, and doing that at a time like this?
Yeah, that's good. I think, thanks for the compliment, TJ. I think the things that are sticking in my brain right now are some of like, who do I believe God is, right? And Nathan was talking a little bit about this too. Like it comes down to, as we think about who we are as believers in Christ, like what it comes down to is, do I really believe that God is who he says he is? And if I do, then everything in life is a response to those beliefs, right? That and I think those get tested in this time. Like, do I believe God's really sovereign? Do I believe he's really good? Do I believe he's in control and that he's wise, that he knows what he's up to? And if we say we believe those things, then everything in front of us is an opportunity, right? So I think a consistent question I've been asking myself here with students is like, what is God up to? Why is he doing this right now for this group of seniors? Like, what is he gonna teach them through this? What skills and assets are they gaining by having to go through this? I want to believe that God's building like compassionate hearts in them, that he's building character and perseverance, that he's building flexibility in them to adversity. And so those are the things I'm seeing from my high schoolers that, like, wow, I've been so impressed how in 2 days you guys can go from being face-to-face to, not perfectly, but doing this online thing for the most part. And in some ways, it's just made me fall in love with teaching again, and my students. I've just been really, really impressed by their character coming out in a lot of ways as they go through a challenging time. So I think one of the things that helps me serve them better is trying to come in as a co-learner with them. Like when I enter the space, that we're learning together. Like, I'm learning how to teach you guys in this space. Bear with me, give me feedback. So it's a blessing to be able to get to do that.
Wow. Yeah. My goodness. Thank you. Thank you both so much for sharing some wisdom, opening up your lives to myself personally, and all those tuning in here, and those that will tune in the future. It's been super cool just seeing how God's blessed you with different characteristics, different roles, different circumstances, but in a lot of ways, the same him, the same foundation to be building on. Which is super encouraging to me, and just that's a great piece of hope, knowing in who that hope can lie and can be built on. So thank you for being examples of faith and being servants in our community here. We've really loved having you both on. We'll give you a round of applause for joining us. I'll be sure to share both contact bits of info if you're interested to reach out to either Nathan or Ben afterwards.
Hey, Jake, real quick, if I can interrupt you, I just got in the comments a couple of questions that maybe Nathan and I can quick respond to.
Yeah, for sure. You got a better eye than I do.
Well, Trey just asked about what led Nathan and I to working with kids in the city. Nathan, maybe you just want to respond to that quick. Your story's
I can go first. So I mentioned at the beginning coming to Christ when I was 20 years old, and so there's a lot of different things that changed, a lot of different new desires that God gave me, and so one of those was with a year and a half left to getting my civil engineering degree. So my junior year, when I started taking was done with my generals, people said, well, you're going to really start to enjoy the classes once you get into the core engineering classes. And I didn't. And so I started realizing that wasn't, was in the wrong career path. And so, so I went on a summer project with crew and met my future wife there, and so it was kind of by a mistake. So Treg's question was, how did we get connected to, just a desire to be in the city. So mine was kind of by accident, because I I was supposed to find an apartment for my wife and I, and I thought the ad said Prospect Park, which is a neighborhood by the University of Minnesota. And I went to, this was before smartphones and that type of thing. And so I went to go find it, couldn't find it. Ended up, it was in Powderhorn Park, not in Prospect Park. And so I ended up liking the neighborhood, liking the place anyway. And so got the place, and then ended up buying a house that next year. But we started living in, right in the heart of the city by accident. And then when I had to get into the education program, you had to have a certain number of hours working with kids. And so I started volunteering at one of the Minneapolis schools, and just immediately fell in love with the kids from the city. And so just after getting, beginning to have relationships with kids from the city, it just there's something that just kids are awesome. And just quickly realized that that's what I wanted to spend my time doing. And so just the combination of living in the city and then working with kids in the city just kind of grew from there.
Yeah, really cool. Building different kinds of bridges than you expected, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Yeah, and Ben, how about for you?
Yeah, I went to a crew summer project actually to Los Angeles. So I lived in a frat at USC for a summer, and I kind of fell in love with the inner city during that time, and came back from there asking myself what God wanted to do with those seeds. And I think I actually practiced engineering for a while, but I was also doing some basketball coaching and some other things at some parks, working actually in Nathan's classroom a little bit during a season of unemployment, and decided to make the transition to teaching. And so, yeah, and God just has opened doors, I think. And I think my favorite thing about kids in the city, the media wants to report the problems, on the north side, the problems with crime and other things. And what gets left out most of the time is the beauty of the people, the authenticity that's there, the vibrancy of culture and people, and what we can learn from them. And so I think Nathan would agree with me that we get way more out of it than we put into it.
Yeah.
In so many ways. So yeah, it's a blessing to get to be a part of it.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Really cool. I mean, puts me in a really cool spot, early in my career, being curious, what sort of doors. Really good question. Sorry that we can't get to all of these. We're a little over on our time, but this was great. Seriously, thank you guys again so much for joining. Again, to our audience, I'll make sure to have in the follow-up comments, having our both Ben and Nathan's emails if there's a specific note or an encouragement you'd like to send their way. So again, Ben, Nathan, thank you again for joining. We'll follow up and chat soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Enjoy the time. Thank you.
You got it. All right. Take it easy. Enjoy your night. We'll see you guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, my, oh my, what a nightmare that was from like an editing perspective, because we got a lot of cool snippets to go back and edit out to make sure that we can give some cool things for folks, because that was phenomenal. That was great. Wow. I'm super impressed by both Ben and Nathan, and I know that some of you guys already know them and know their work. It's been really cool just getting to learn the vessels that they are in our kingdom. Man, super awesome. And a lot of challenges that, you don't necessarily have to be the leader of a school or a teacher or something. I think a lot of the things that they're drawing out, I hope resonate in so many different avenues. And the cool thing is the common denominator there, a lot of things tied back to God's revealing himself and how God chooses to do that, which was very encouraging. So I'm super excited for what beholds of the seeds planted here. We're going to transition into our last little bit, something that we've done each week, just a little word of encouragement and just hearing from Scripture So I got a quick verse for us. It's a quick little handful of verses. But instead of diving super deep into these, because I know we're coming close on our time here, and everyone's got to go get ready to make their bed sheets exactly how they need them in order to sleep tonight. We'll make sure to go through this, but I think that this ties into a number of things that we heard from Ben and Nathan, and a number of things that we're hearing in this world. So this comes from the book of Philippians, Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 to 11. And it reads, "Make your own attitude that of Christ Jesus, who, existing in the form of God, did not consider equality with God as something to be used for his own advantage. But instead he emptied himself by assuming the form of a slave, taking on the likeness of men. And when he had come as a man in his external form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, and even death on a cross. For this reason, God also highly exalted him and gave him the name that is above every name, so that the name of Jesus, every knee should bow, of those who are in heaven and on earth and under earth, and every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father." Now, this was on my heart just to share and sharing the context here. This is clearly talking about Christ. It's clearly talking about the example that Christ is. And although we personally can't draw every bit from this little passage out directly to our lives, for instance, I don't think folks will be confessing that Jake Smith is anything super special over it, really a lot. They don't need to be, but we do get some cool flavors there. This talks about just the glory of Christ being able to be that propitiation for our sin, being able to stand in and bring us into glory, bring us from darkness to light. And from that, he continues to send us on with the attitudes that he's left us to follow, making our attitude that of Christ, is how this starts in verse 5. So I just wanted to use that as an encouragement this week that maybe now more than ever. I remember in sports being kicked in the rear to myself saying, man, I got to change my attitude towards this. And that was a way that I would coach myself. But now in life, this is a time where I do need to change my attitude. There are all sorts of avenues that I need to change my attitude towards and be Christ-like, be humbled, be servant-hearted, even in areas that I can gloat and take as much as I can and even expect. Those are areas that I would love to change that attitude in. So I wanted to share that from Philippians 2, verses 5 to 11. Hopefully it means some good for you men as well. Last thing before we sign off here, I know that we're coming up on time, but as we do each and every week, I would love to share a song that I've been listening to recently. It's a song that I'm super excited about. It's actually from a band that I remember from long ago that I was introduced to. They're a band that I've really enjoyed listening. So the group is Beautiful Eulogy. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of Beautiful Eulogy, but the song that I've been listening to and the play of the week this week is a song called If. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. Focused. If. IFF. By Beautiful Eulogy. It's a song that really talks about, it goes right into what does it look like to follow Christ. If we hinder Christ and who he is, and something that we heard from Nathan and Ben earlier, if we believe who God is and who he says he is, it's from there that everything that look like. So I'd love you guys to check out this. Beautiful Eulogy is one of my favorite groups. I definitely have a creative side. If you couldn't tell by my shirt here, my creative side is definitely fancied by Beautiful Eulogy. They do a great job communicating raw emotion and authentic personality in a gospel lens through music. So that's the play of the week. Trying to keep it fresh each week. Thank you again so much for joining in. That's all we got this week. I'll make sure to send some of the follow-up things. So if things stuck out, if you're eager to see the answer for our pastor trivia or anything else of the resources, be sure to see the video updated as we'll put those links up there. Thanks so much for having some time with us tonight. We look super forward to seeing you soon. And I'm going to leave you with an exciting thing and also a bit of a bummer. The exciting thing is we got some cool stuff in store for our upcoming late night with Jake Smith. But the bummer is we won't be having one next week. Next week we'll be having an alternative time, but we won't be going live for late nights with Jake Smith. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll make sure that excuse me. We'll make sure that all that information gets sent out and updated accordingly. So enjoy Good Friday next week. Enjoy the time connecting and pursuing humility in Christ. Love you all a lot. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.